The healing process has definitely begun, but it's nowhere near over. We've got so many memories of Dale, and we look forward to sharing those memories with our crew members and the people inside the garage over the next few months to try to help us get to where we need to be. Hope you enjoy the race. This race and this season is going to be dedicated to the memory of Dale Earnhardt, the man that got me to victory lane.
The North Carolina Motor Speedway packed with fans on this February afternoon. Rockingham, the Rock, as it's familiarly called, and every fan entering this speedway received a Dale Earnhardt banner. They all came to their feet when this young man was introduced, Dale Earnhardt Jr., who will race today. In an Earnhardt car, Michael Waltrip won the Daytona 500. He too is here today to carry on. Lost control in yesterday morning's practice session, demolishing his primary car, rolled out the backup car, and though he brushed the wall in turn 4 on his qualifying pass, he's in the show. The third Earnhardt-owned car, driven by Steve Park, fastest in practice, will start from the outside pole. And this young man, Kevin Harvick, elevated from the Busch Series to the Richard Childress team, which will not field a black car today, nor a car with 3 in the number. 29 was the first number available, and that's what they chose. They all come here today with the rest of the NASCAR Winston Cup field to challenge the Rock. Let's go trackside to Steve Burns.
Mike, Richard Childress has been kind enough to talk to us. Richard, everyone wants to know, how do you feel?
You know, we're all saddened today, and we just been praying for the Earnhardt family, and give us all strength. They would want us to be strong. You know, he'd be kicking my butt if he knew we were weak now, and it's just so many people that he's touched their lives, and I pray for them. And he was a special person, special friend. We're going to miss him. We got a job to do today. Nobody wants to be here, but we're doing it for Dale today. And Kevin Harvick has stepped up to the plate. He's a great young driver, and we got a lot of confidence in him. Dale had a lot of confidence in him. He kidded around how he was going to hire him, and so I know Dale would be happy with what we've done with putting Kevin in the car. There'll never be, like Kevin said the other day, there'll never be another Dale Earnhardt, and he just wants to be another RCR driver.
Thank you for your grace, Richard.
Thank you.
There was rain here about an hour ago. Track drying efforts continue, and there is a lot of gray in the asphalt, which means the track is drying. This week, amidst cries from people who don't understand this sport or the people in it, to not hold this race, to not bring these cars, to not challenge these drivers, we are all here, and we are set to go racing. Because, if for nothing else, Larry McReynolds, if Dale were here and thought we weren't going racing, he'd kick our butt.
He really would. And I had a conversation with Kevin Hamlin, Dale's crew chief, on Monday. I called Kevin, and I said, Kevin, every crew chief in the garage area can call you and tell you they know how you feel. Larry McReynolds says it knowingly from losing Davey Allison in 1993. And I told him, I said, the toughest day in your life is going to be going back to that racetrack with all the parts, all the pieces you've had, but that one element missing. But you're the captain. You've got to be strong. And we, the broadcasters, the fans, everybody, we've got to do what Dale Earnhardt would want us to do, and that's back here racing.
It took forever to pack our car on Thursday. I didn't want to come here. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to reach this point, this place. But upon coming here and seeing the people in the garage, our friends, our neighborhood, our extended family, on seeing the outpouring of these people in the stands, I and so many people I talk to are so glad that we are among people of like mind and purpose, and people who today will continue the healing process and who will go on. You hear the track dryers in the background. You see pit road is still damp, but the banking of this 1-mile superspeedway is nearly dry, and we grow closer to a somewhat delayed race start. Let's go down near Victory Lane to Chris Myers.
And I am with Jeff Hammond and Darrell Waltrip. Darrell would, of course, usually be up in the broadcast booth, but you are going to be giving the invocation, part of a very special opening ceremony here in Rockingham, remembering your friend and the great driver, Dale Earnhardt.
Yes, I am. I was just so pleased that they asked me to do that, and you know, it's only fitting that it's raining. I think it's the heavens crying. I think those are tears from heaven, and I think until we get this race underway and get on with the business at hand, those tears are going to fall.
Darrell, a number of fans thought, hey, the 3-car, retire the number. Of course, NASCAR actually owns the rights. Richard Childress has said, I'm not going to run the black 3-car, and we know that Kevin Harvick, the rookie, is driving the white 29 car at that crew. Do you agree with that?
You know, I understand it. And as we said in the opening show, emotions run high, and I believe when time goes by, I believe that possibly Teresa and Richard Childress will reconsider that.
Really?
Quite frankly, I miss Dale. I think I'd feel better if I saw that car, even though he wouldn't be in it. I think at some point in time I would feel better if I saw that car back on the racetrack.
And Jeff, you were another one emotionally. Jeff Burton told me, hey, even yesterday, I thought I was going to be okay, but it's still on my mind, and I'm having trouble concentrating. But as the day wore on yesterday, and people were busy with the job at hand, it looked like they were getting back to their responsibilities of racing, and not discarding the memory of Dale Earnhardt, but moving forward.
Well, it's part of the healing process we've been talking about, Chris, is that when you came here, you felt it in the garage area. Friday was a bad day for everybody. I mean, it was just too much time to think about it, reflect about what had gone on, and it really had a lot of pain and agony that went through that whole total garage area. But as Saturday came around, we got focused on the fact we got to get qualifying going, we got to get these cars ready to race, and everybody, as the day progressed, got more zeroed in on what their responsibilities are. And you got to realize something. You know, when you're a crew chief or you're a crew member, you've got a responsibility to your driver and your owner and your sponsor. So you got to get focused in on getting your job done. Then you turn around and the drivers understand, hey, I got a responsibility to all these guys that work for me, so they get in there and they buckle in and they're ready to go.
Before we go to Dick Bergman, Darrell, briefly, was it the right thing to do to continue to race this week, or with a driver the magnitude of Dale Earnhardt?
Well, there's no question about that. I mean, Dale is NASCAR. Dale is our connection to the past. Dale was Dale Earnhardt, and he was bigger than life. But you got to remember something. This sport is a far-reaching sport. There are many, many people that depend on racing for their livelihood. And there's so many people, as Jeff said, it's involved. There's sponsors, there's owners, there's crew members, there are other family members. A lot of things revolve around this sport. It's not just a sport anymore. It's not a hobby. It's an industry. And in this industry, one of the things that we have to do, our season is all perpetuated upon how you do week to week to week. So if you don't go on, if that team decided to set out, it takes them out of any hope they have for having a good year. And a good year is what Dale would want, and that's how you're going to get past all this, is doing what you think Dale Earnhardt would want you to do.
You couldn't have said it any better. I'm telling you right now, you've got to understand the man we're talking about. Not the number, the man. I mean, he is what we're all referring to. And this is what he would want us to do. This is the way he'd want it to be done. And I mean, the fans out there that understand Dale Earnhardt will be here to support what we're doing and the reason why we've got to do it.
And risk, of course, part of the sport. Safety, an issue that we'll be looking at throughout the race and, of course, through the coming weeks. Right now, let's go down to Dick Bergman. Dick?
Thanks, Chris. So many drivers and crew members have told me that they believe Dale Earnhardt would be displeased if we made too much of what had happened last Sunday, that he would be not happy if his extended family here at the racetrack, if his fans grieved too much. He believed, they think, that the race should go on indeed, and that they should do the right thing, focus on the race car. This place is not the same. Racing will not ever be the same. There's a big empty space where a black number 3 car and a guy named Earnhardt drove it. But they all know that Earnhardt would want every crew member, every driver, every crew chief to do his absolute level best to come here to Rockingham and try to win this race. And that is what they will all do. To Matt Yoakum.
Dick, the mood in the garage area matches today's weather. Dark, somber, and gloomy. Everyone just trying to grieve and heal in their own way. A number of teams are putting up special T-shirts and decals, and just about everybody has on a special 3-car hat like Steve Park. Everyone trying to pay tribute to a fallen legend, a legend that's left us with a treasure chest full of memories, special Dale Earnhardt stories, because he was a special man. He personified the American dream. He started out just trying to be somebody and ended up an American icon. We will go on today and race 393 laps. Then race on to Las Vegas, Atlanta, and Darlington. It will never, ever be the same. But to quote Jimmy Buffett, heroes are forever. Mike?
You're right, Matt. The healing starts here. And with the running of this race, drivers and crews will be able to turn their attention and their focus to this business at hand that they know so well. The Earnhardt name lives on not just in the memory of Dale, but in the legacy of Dale and his son, Dale Jr.
Who's going to replace Dale Earnhardt? Nobody. You will not ever replace Dale Earnhardt.
NASCAR has lost its greatest driver ever.
I miss you so much. I can't stand it. Seems like my heart is breaking in two. My head says go, but my soul demands it. And everything I do reminds me of you.
All right, thank you very much, Jeannie, and all of the drivers with Dale Earnhardt on there. In fact, Jeff Gordon, who won the pole right in the qualifying lap, had a rough first lap, and then the second lap, when he won the pole, said, hey, Dale Earnhardt must have helped me do that because, you know, I had him on my mind. And I want to talk, you know, the last time viewers, Darrell, saw you on Fox was the emotional ending, the high point of your brother Michael winning his first race, and then not realizing at the time, you quickly reacted, hey, I hope Dale's okay when we hit the wall. And it has been, I know, an emotional roller coaster for you all week long. And I think maybe you've had a chance to reflect on that day and those thoughts, the high and the low of it all. How have you handled that?
Well, I you know, after I thought about it a while, I certainly felt inadequate. I was focused on getting Michael across the start-finish line. I saw Dale spin. I saw Dale and Kenny spin out of the corner of my eye, but I'm getting him to the line. You know, we got to make it. I don't want Dale Jr. to pull out there and get a run on him off of turn 4. As soon as he got across the line and we shot back up the track, I saw what had happened. I saw the car, and then immediately, I can't tell you, but in my heart, I knew something bad was wrong. And and then at that point, my emotions went everywhere. At that point, before I was thinking about going to Victory Circle. I'm going to go celebrate with my brother. And then the next thing I'm thinking about is I got to get to the hospital because my friend is dying or my friend's in trouble and he might need me. I knew he was hurt. I could tell by the car and I could tell by the way things were going on around. I knew he was hurt. I never thought about him being dead.
And this was the intimidator, the guy who we've seen walk away from crashes that look far more dangerous than that.
I know when Kenny Schrader went around to let the window net down, I know that Kenny thought he was probably going to hop out there and have a few choice words for somebody and then hobble off on maybe down to Victory Circle. That's what my vision was. But when it wasn't happening, when he wasn't getting out of that car, and I saw people, and I could tell there was a difference about the way they approached that car, I got scared to death.
And the irony that he was protecting, he knew Michael, his car, and Dale, his son, were ahead. The one time he doesn't go for himself.
Totally uncharacteristic.
Right.
Totally not Dale Earnhardt.
Definitely.
Dale Earnhardt on the racetrack, I don't mean this unkindly, but he could be very selfish.
Oh, yeah.
Dale Earnhardt looked out for Dale Earnhardt. He didn't look out for Junior. He didn't look out for his teammates. He didn't look out for any. He was out there to win that race at any cost. It cost him his life Sunday, and he wasn't even doing what he normally does. He was a shepherd. That's how I view it. I view it as a shepherd, shepherding his flock into Victory Circle, and he gave up his life to do that.
And Kevin Harvick, who's going to run in the 29, the white car, really replacing that crew, was someone that Dale, when he was with us, had him in mind, along with Richard Childress, as a guy that he thought could be groomed as a future driver.
Well, we've already heard, like from Richard Childress, that, you know, hey, if you don't do something with him, Richard, I'm going to do something with him. I think he realized really quick how the potential was with this young man. We're looking for rising stars to come in and to bring up through the ranks. So, you know, here's an opportunity right now for us to get this young man, put him underneath our programs, bring him along slowly but surely. Let me coach him. I mean, it's already been proven that DEI and Richard Childress, they know how to groom race car drivers and make successful drivers out of a bunch of them. So it's a golden opportunity for this young man, and I look for him to really, you know, step up and get the job done.
One thing that Jeff and I were talking about, Dale had a presence about him, and you had to be around him a lot to understand this, but he had a presence about him that reminded me, and I told Jeff this, and he said, "You're right," of a Junior Johnson.
Yeah.
Junior Johnson chose me to drive his race car. I stepped up.
Right.
I did not want to disappoint Junior Johnson. When Dale chose me to drive the one car, the Pennzoil car, I stepped up because Dale Earnhardt said,
right,
you can drive that car and you can win races in it, and that's what I intended to do. When he chose Michael Waltrip, Michael's confidence went sky high. It rocketed, and Michael Waltrip won his first race. You see that young man right there? He's going to follow in those same footsteps. He doesn't want to disappoint Dale Earnhardt.
Dale had a vision, even in death, leaving his mark on this sport. Let's go upstairs to Mike Joy in the booth. Mike?
That is the space where Dale's motor coach would have sat, and it's lined with tributes and flowers. I think Darrell adequately conveyed what we felt in the booth from seeing the incident, from seeing Ken Schrader's reaction. But to those of you and to some second-guessing folks who thought that last Sunday we didn't convey a sufficient sense of gravity, in an active crash scene, our reporters are barred from the scene. Our cameras were shielded. We had to rely on the officials and NASCAR for information, and at every turn we were stonewalled. I think we did what we could to convey that we knew this was serious, but in absence of any further information, we told you all we could, and we told you all we knew. And we were just as saddened as shocked to learn of the ultimate outcome, but there was not much more we could have done with the information that we were allowed to have.
And that's our philosophy. We don't want to speculate. We want to give you the facts and tell you what we know. And I've reflected so much back, something Darrell said. Can you imagine how proud Dale Earnhardt was looking out that windshield and seeing his son, and not just a guy that drove for him, but Michael Waltrip, Buffy Waltrip, they was Dale and Teresa's best friends, out there fighting to win the Daytona 500. I just can't imagine what Dale Earnhardt felt. We'll never know what he was thinking. But what I felt like, is for once I saw Dale Earnhardt driving defensively instead of offensively. He was protecting them kids. He wanted to see them fight it out to win the Daytona 500.
Let's take a look and a listen to what some of Dale Earnhardt's contemporaries are thinking and feeling.
Dale Earnhardt was synonymous with NASCAR racing. There are so many race car drivers, young drivers, that chose to go NASCAR racing because they wanted to be like Dale Earnhardt, and they wanted to emulate what he had done. And I don't have to remind the world how great a loss it is. Every one of us feel it the same way.
He was a really good friend, and if I could talk to him right now, I'd look him right in the eye and say, boy, when I get to heaven, you and I are going to have a couple of words, because you sure did make a lot of us cry while you were gone.
I'll tell you what, on race day, you better get it right.
Welcome back to the North Carolina Speedway and Fox Sports coverage of the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. A band of showers that has passed through the sandhills of eastern North Carolina has dampened the track, but not the enthusiasm of these fans. Track drying effort continues. We're still a little bit away from a start, but it'll give us a chance to talk to more of the people who will participate in today's race. Steve Burns.
Kevin Harvick, Kevin Hamlin told me this morning that Dale Earnhardt thought an awful lot about you as a person and your ability. How do you feel as we get ready to start this race?
I feel like we have a chance to win the race. We had an awesome car yesterday in happy hour, and you know, it's a tough situation, but it's only as tough as you make it. And I think the people, the 190 people at RCR and the fans and everybody surrounding it has not turned it into a positive, but made it a lot easier on me and made me feel comfortable where I can go out and drive the race car and do what I have to do. And I think I said this in a press conference the other day. If Dale Earnhardt had a broken leg and he couldn't race this weekend, he'd want me to drive the hell out of his race car, and that's what I'm going to do.
Well, tell us how it was in practice. Are you ready for this race?
Yeah, I mean, the race car was good. We only ran the first 45 minutes, and we felt we were as good, if not better, than most of the cars. And I mean, today's a different day, and you never know what's going to happen. But as of yesterday, when I was in my motorhome listening to the rest of them practice, we were fine. So, you know, it's just one of those deals where you don't know what the racetrack's going to be like, and you know, I know how the race car is going to drive, but the weather's not the same, so I really don't. But we'll just go out there and do the best we can, and I think we got one of the best race teams behind us that there is in the business, and I know I've got the best owner in the business, so we're well surrounded, and we'll be fine.
Good luck to you, Kevin. Let's go to Matt Yoakum.
Steve, Ron Hornaday Jr. will start 28th today in A.J. Foyt's car, but for 6 seasons, he won 2 Truck Series titles and numerous races in Busch and Truck Series competition for Dale Earnhardt. It's been a very tough week. Although you're gone from the team, you're still a member of the family. How tough has the week been, Ron?
Well, I can't say much. I mean, everybody said it all about Dale. He's definitely the man, and he's been a great boss to me. He's been everything. Most I'm going to miss, he's been a great friend. He's got me and my wife where I'm at now. If it wasn't for Dale and Teresa to give me that phone call 6 years ago, I wouldn't have got my first opportunity to run the Daytona 500 with A.J. Foyt. It's pretty tough.
Looking at this weekend, you came in here with a team that doesn't have a lot of points. You know you had to try to get this car in qualifying. How much pressure was on you considering all that took place this week?
Well, I mean, you always think Dale's going to walk in and grab you by the shoulder like he always does, Matt, and it took me until that morning when I went to the funeral deal, and it hit me real hard. So to come here and see everybody with Dale Earnhardt hats on and stuff, I still had to be real quiet about it, just emotional inside. But Felipe Lopez, all the guys on this team really stood behind me and gave me a great car. The Conseco Pontiac qualified for the race. There's a lot more in it, just I wasn't all here. So I got to thank them guys for really being patient with me. I know this is a new step for my career, and we got to show these people that we want to go racing. But lose a great friend like Dale Earnhardt, not only a boss and what he's done for me and everybody else, I'm definitely going to miss him.
A very, very tough loss, Mike.
I was at Ron Hornaday's shop the morning after he got the call from Dale Earnhardt. He'd been racing in NASCAR winter heat, and Earnhardt called him up, offered him a ride. And first time he called, Hornaday refused the call, didn't believe it was Earnhardt. And by that next morning, I think he still didn't believe he'd had the call from Dale Earnhardt. But Hornaday went on to become a champion of NASCAR's Truck Series 2 times over. And that series got off to a fine start at Daytona. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, Joe Ruttman, race winner and point leader over Ricky Hendricks, Scott Riggs with a great run, Lance Norrick, and Randy Tolsma.
Well, thanks, Dick. Rusty Wallace taking the opportunity to have a little Goodyear convention over here. You want to share the conversation?
Well, we're trying some different air pressures here, and I want to make sure I'm on the safe side because generally I'm the guy who gets pretty aggressive on it. I don't want to tear anything up today, but I've been hearing a lot of real low left side numbers, and it seems like that might be making the car turn better, so I'm trying to find out what the very lowest I can do.
A couple of the senior members of NASCAR's Winston Cup Series reflect on their memories of Dale Earnhardt.
It's going to be a loss for all of us, like Elvis Presley probably was to the music industry, and maybe even greater.
He only wanted to be the best. He only wanted to win, and he did whatever he could to win. And I think that's where he was such a great inspiration, that every aspiring young driver in the country that wants to be a stock car driver, they would look at Dale Earnhardt and say, if I could just be a little bit like him, I'll make it in this business and can be good.
With Kenny Schrader. Kenny, they're just talking upstairs about what an emotional week it must have been for you. How do you feel here at the racetrack?
Feel better at the racetrack, you know, because all your friends and stuff here. I mean, we are one big family, and it seemed like we left Daytona a month ago. It just was a long week.
How do you feel as we are about to start this race?
I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Someone asked me what the biggest difference is, and I said, well, usually one time, just out of meanness, he'd wiggle you here and, you know, make you see how good a job you could do of saving it. But it'll be different without Dale here, but you know, we need to be here. That's what we need to be doing.
Thank you, Kenny. Let's go to Chris Myers.
All right, thank you very much. Much has been made about driver safety this week, given the loss of Dale Earnhardt. On our pre-race show on Fox, we talked with NASCAR President Mike Helton and tried to address some of the issues. The Hans device, for example, I know Dale Jarrett wore that at the Daytona 500. Yeah. The number has doubled. There are at least 6 or 7 drivers that are wearing that in this race today, and a number of others have ordered that and are looking into it. The 6-point seatbelt, which maybe you could explain. I know Tony Stewart said, hey, I'm stepping up to that. Other drivers are using that. And Dale Jarrett told me when I asked him about that, Darrell, he said, I wouldn't make it mandatory, but I'm surprised that any driver wouldn't want to try this thing and wear it.
That was my take on, people ask me, well, what would you do? I can tell you one thing, I'd have it on today. After last Sunday and what we've seen over the last 10 months, I would have it on. I would learn to like it. I would get used to it. At Daytona and Talladega the last several years, I've worn the donut. Right. It's the neck collar. And with a full face helmet and the neck collar, it gave you quite a bit of stability. It wasn't the answer, right, but that was my way of trying to protect myself. But with the Hans device, no question. Right. There shouldn't be a driver out here today that doesn't have one on.
And it at least, Jeff, increases your chances, right? I mean, in terms of whatever. And in fact, a number of the drivers said you can't just throw it on. You got to really get used to it, practice in it. They'll mold something for you.
They're custom made. If I'm going to be his crew chief and I'm telling Larry Merrick the same thing, if he's going to drive for you today, he better have it on. We're going to have a fight here right now, I'm telling you. Because it's a situation where I very strongly believe if you're going to pay the insurance policy, you know, take full advantage of it. I mean, it's just one more thing to give yourself an opportunity to go out and do what we love, have some fun, and get out and talk about it. I mean, why not take the opportunity and seize it, you know?
I know the people of NASCAR have made more than 50 safety changes since 1994, and Darrell, you, as we look at some of the drivers stepping in and trying on the Hans device.
This is Brett Bodine, and he's putting his on right now.
And Darrell, you asked Mike Helton, hey, maybe it's time now that we make something like this mandatory. What was his response? Was it sufficient for you?
Well, I think it's something you got to do. It shouldn't be an option. It shouldn't be, well, we're going to look at it. It shouldn't be maybe so. I think it's something you just got to do. These drivers are just like kids. They're just like the analogy I used about the motorcycle riders who won't ride with a helmet unless you make them, unless it's a law. It should be a law that you got to have some sort of head restraint device. Right. You can choose, but it's got to be a head restraint device.
Okay. And let's talk about what we just saw here a second ago on the screen was, Chris, is that what this device does, it comes over your shoulders. You put your seat belts on, and when you strap down and pull down to your lap belts, it allows you to hook your helmet to this shoulder device so that when you do hit the wall, it limits your motion as far as the head going forward. So that's the important part.
Ricky Rudd has said that it affected his vision to see over the rear view mirror, and he was a little concerned about that, getting used to that.
Add mirrors.
Okay.
I mean, we can add some mirrors.
You need a little side. I've always had a side mirror right up here that I can see down the left side of my car. Yep. Dale Earnhardt can't see it all today, and I believe he could have been here still if he had some sort of device. But let's make something perfectly clear. NASCAR has never mandated anything in that area, and I'm not blaming them for not doing it. The drivers, the wives, the families, the crew chiefs, they ought to be the ones that saying, you're not getting in that car unless you put this on. And then NASCAR support that.
And there are several other devices that have been implemented, like the Hans device, as they find something new that helps. I know Jeff Burton has said, hey, we need to, as a group, driver, manufacturer, car owner at NASCAR, be more aggressive about safety, as Casey Atwood and the Ray Evernham Dodge team is one, and he has straps on his back, and I would assume
I believe that's Bill Simpson's device there that hooks to the unit.
Is that an additional, and explain the difference, and we're going to get to Ricky Rudd, he's standing by in a moment, but the difference in a 5-point, 6-point seatbelt system, if you can, for our viewers.
Okay, what you're talking about, Chris, is the seatbelts go like this. 1, 2 for the shoulder harnesses, 3, 4 lap, and you have what they call a submarine strap, which keeps the lap belts pulled down tight against your hips. What they've done is they've added another strap that comes up in that submarine area that pulls down. It actually almost pulls your legs a little bit tighter along with the lap belts to make the bottom part of your body a lot more secure than just normal. So they call it a 6-point. And some drivers have actually used a 6-point and left the single submarine strap, so they actually got 7 points, really pulling them down tight into the seat.
Now, what about to hold all of that? What that does, that is the strap that goes between your legs. these additional straps. And that's so when you have an accident forward, you don't slide down underneath the belts, slide out of the belts. It holds the belts tightly, pulling back. You don't want belts just pulling down. They got to be pulling back a little bit so that when you hit something, you don't slide out of them. Those additional belts will keep that from happening.
All right, we'll continue, and there is more to discuss in relation to Dale Earnhardt. We mentioned Ricky Rudd. He is standing by live, and we'll get his thoughts on this. Let's get down to pit road.
Well, for another side of the story, Ricky Rudd, what do you think? Should there be more safety devices mandated? Should you be required to wear things like the Hans device?
Well, Dick, I think anything that can improve driver safety ought to definitely be looked at. Should it be mandated? I think when there's positive proof and there's tests that show that the Hans device truly works in a Winston Cup environment, and we know it works, there's no guesswork to it, then yeah, I think they ought to be mandated. But on the same token, you know, we've never really seen these devices in Winston Cup cars go through any kind of terrible crashes. But again, I think anything is better than not having anything at all, and I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing varying versions of the Hans device, and me personally, I would wear one if I could get comfortable in it, and be honest with you, I haven't spent enough time working on it, getting it some type of a customized form of a Hans device. I like the theory behind it. I think it seems like me it would have to work. I don't want to be the guy that goes out and tests it. I think that's up to the crash dummies to do all that. But if it works, and it's proved that it works in a Winston Cup car, and different from a Formula car or Indy car, you know, we sit up driving our cars. We don't lay down in the seat. I put one on one time. That's not much of a chance. But when I put it on, the problem I had with it, and I didn't really have anybody show me there how to wear it, but it was, to me, it limited my side-to-side vision. I couldn't turn my head very far. Again, a lot of these guys that are wearing ones today have taken that stock version and modified it to work for them. And quite frankly, I should be responsible for that, and I need to sit down. Matter of fact, we've got 2 of them sitting in the shop that I'm going to work on Monday. That's not doing us any good this weekend.
How would you feel if they required some of this stuff, if they take the choice away from you?
Well, I don't think it's a bad way to go. If it makes, you know, if it's mandatory and everybody has to use it, then we just all have to use it. You don't want to end up causing more problems. All of a sudden you have a rash of accidents because a driver cut another driver off because he couldn't turn his head to see that there was another car there. You know, that's the only thing about mandating it and just kind of like forcing it down everybody's throats. But again, if it's proven that it's better and it can save some lives, then I'm all for mandating it.
I will say this, in the garage area this week, I've seen more people looking at seats, seat belts, restraint systems than I have ever seen before. This has really sharpened focus on safety. To Jeannie Zalasko.
Yeah, I just want to respond to Ricky Rudd, and I'm certainly not arguing with Ricky Rudd by any means, but again, if you hear what he says, yeah, if it was mandatory and everybody had to wear it, then sure, I'd wear one, but I don't want to be the only guy out there with one, and I really haven't tried it yet. And it restrains. Sure, it's going to affect your driving and the way you've driven or sat in the car before. But we can put mirrors. I had mirrors in my car. I had a big long mirror across the top. I had a little side mirror. Put mirrors. If it's going to keep you from moving around, put mirrors. I look in these cars now. They got headrests that go all the way past the driver's head, and there's no way he can see side to side anyway. So there's a lot of things we can do. First thing we got to do, though, is something. We can't just keep saying, well, I don't know, maybe we ought to do. We got to do something.
Daryl, to you and Jeff, there's one thing that we've talked about what the drivers need to do. What we need to do, as Mike Kelton referred to, the cocoon, where the driver sits. But something I've thought about all week is something that has evolved over the last 15 or even 20 years. We have learned as crew chiefs, nothing to do with NASCAR, that the stiffer we can make the race cars, the more responsive they are to changes. In other words, the more rigid we can make it. And when you look at a car from 15 years ago to a car in the garage today, there's more braces, there's more gussets. We've got braces on the braces. And what's happened now, with more stands around the racetrack, we've had to get away from guardrails. We've had to go to concrete walls. So you've got a concrete wall that will not move. You've got a stiff race car. The stiff race car hits the wall. It's like a brick hitting a brick. What's the weak link? The human body sitting in the seat. So I think, you know, it's a combination. We can talk about Hans devices and neck supports and neck restraints, but I think when I say we, that's NASCAR, race teams, everybody, the engineers, we've got to look at some other things that we can do to soften that blow. There's no crush. There's no crush when the race car hits the wall.
We'll continue here from the North Carolina Speedway in just a bit. Track drying efforts are having quite a good effect. Beyond the Glory tonight takes a look at the life and times of Dale Earnhardt, one of NASCAR's greatest, and the intimidating presence that earned him the respect of fellow drivers and the adoration of millions of fans. Beyond the Glory, featuring Dale Earnhardt, airs tonight at 8 p.m. on Fox Sports Net. We'll be right back.
Dale had no idea how much he taught me, how much I learned from him, whether it was follow him on the racetrack or just following his lead off the racetrack, with the way he handled himself with the people, the public, his family.
As much as I had looked up to him throughout my whole childhood, it was amazing to realize that when you're in the presence of greatness, that he was just an ordinary guy, and that was something that was pretty cool that I always remember.
Pre-race show. Did Rusty Wallace taking the air off Earnhardt's spoiler contribute? Did the angle of the collision with Kenny Schrader? Everyone has theories. Everyone is looking for a place to point the finger of blame. And this week, so much of that focus, again unfairly, has been pointed at Sterling Marlin.
Well, and blame. I hate the word blame. We don't need to say the word blame. What we need to do is prevention. We need to figure out what happened and see what we can do in the future. And my heart has went out to Sterling Marlin this week. I mean, let's remember, he was the teammate to Kenny Irwin, who lost his life at Loudon. How much more do they have to go through as a race team? And I want to reflect just on one other thing that I heard Nancy Andretti say. That garage area, it's the most dog-eat-dog, try to connive, try to sneak around area that you'll ever find. But when a race team is in trouble, whether it's the team, whether it's the driver, I'm not familiar with any other sports, but you won't find a more closer-knit group that will respond to trouble and be there for you, whether it's personal problems or whether it's a team problem. It's a great feeling to walk in that garage area and see how warm and heartfelt and clinging everybody is in time of trouble.
The unfair focus of much of this attention this week, Sterling Marlin took a minute to sit down with Darrell Waltrip.
Get on down the back straightaway and get in the 3 and start turning in, and I knew it was real tight, and that's what Dale sees me. And as we started in, his car just barely started coming down, and we barely touched. And I got out of the gas, and he straightened it up, and I'm back on the gas, and all of a sudden his car really comes more. It's like he got loose or something. That comes down and barely clips my right front, and it turns me down on the apron, and we're both like this. And I'm trying to straighten my car. The next thing I seen was a flash of black go back across the track up the hill.
Sunday night and Monday had to have been pretty lonely for Sterling Marlin.
I just want to take Monday off. Just, you know, it was a bad loss for racing, and we lost a friend and didn't want to talk about it. But, you know, what the aggravating thing was, you get home and you hear your local news guy saying on TV that, you know, I'd hit Dale Earnhardt. You know, so what movies you watching?
Were you surprised when that started happening?
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked. I said, man, what's going on? I said, and I called NASCAR, called, you know, Mike and them, and said, man, did I do anything wrong? No, you ain't done nothing wrong. And that's what surprised me. But, you know, at the point in time, I guess, you know, some of the Dale's fans have really been fans for years, and you got to point at somebody.
I'm sure it must have made you feel a lot better when all the drivers, and Dale Jr. particularly, came to your aid and supported you and stood by you.
Any blame placed upon anyone, whether it be Sterling Marlin or anybody else for that matter, is ridiculous and will not be tolerated.
We played phone tag for a couple of days and finally got to talk to each other, and he said, man, don't worry about nothing. It's just a racing deal, and you do nothing. He's one of the best racers going now, and you know, here we are starting side by side.
I know you're starting 25th and 26th.
I'm 26, so you know, I just hope Dale Jr. can carry the legacy on, and you know, he's got a golden future in NASCAR.
An embrace between the two during driver introduction earlier today after the rain stopped, and now
headrest in
for the national anthem. Thank you. I'd like to ask you to do something. I'd like to ask you to take the hand by the person beside you, and let's all bond together, and let's all take a few moments to remember Dale and what a great driver he was, and all the great memories that he leaves behind. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, our hearts are hurting. We've lost a great friend, and it all seems so unfair. Lord, we know you have a plan for every one of us, and it's easy for us to deal with the triumphs, but today we have to deal with the tragedy. So, Father, we ask you to give us strength as we deal with this loss. We pray for Teresa, Dale Jr., the entire Earnhardt family. Comfort them, Lord. People ask us, how can we go out and race today? We can do that, first of all, because we know that's what Dale would want us to do. And second of all, because we know he's in heaven with you. He's in a place, Lord, that we all long to be someday. So let us turn our hearts from sadness and let's celebrate the life of Dale Earnhardt and the great memories that we all have of him. Because, Lord, we know without a doubt that he is dwelling in your house and will forevermore. Amen.
Oh.